Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode and another week of Today. We are so delighted to have Michael Mastro on the podcast talking about all things Vastu, which is something that Angelica and I have heard of and are excited to chat about, but we really don't know that much about. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
One of the things that we love to start off with on our podcast is asking all of our guests, when is the first time that you really felt something connect on the soul level or on a spiritual level in your life?
That's such a wonderful question, and I've never been asked that question before. But I thought back to my earliest childhood memories, and I remember uh, being near the ocean, seeing the sunrise, and seeing the sun glistening on the water, and feeling very connected to everything around me. And it was my first experience of a transcendental kind of feeling in the body. Like I was in my body, I just was everything that I was seeing. And there was a strong feeling of wanting to close my eyes because uh I just wanted to be inside because the inside was outside.
Yeah.
It was very powerful. And I've had lots of experiences like that since, but yeah, that was my earliest recollection of a soul experience. I guess I don't really know how to define that, but
Yeah, it's often beyond words. And it's funny, I'm sure this is true with all people, but I find it especially with people we have on the podcast, people who are drawn to nature and nature-based sciences, that so many of these moments for us are in nature and just being totally in awe at and in one with whatever the experience is. And I'm curious if for you that was the catalyst for anything, or you just had this really beautiful moment and later you came to begin to study that experience on a deeper level, or what was the time frame for that?
I think it's exactly what you just said. It gave me an appreciation to be more in nature, as much as I possibly could. I as a kid, you don't have the choices all the time, but yeah, as much as I could, growing up in, I'm much older than you guys, but when I was a child, you go out and play, and it wasn't kind of as restricted as things are now. And had friends in the neighborhood, and we had a area that was very wooded, and we could go in there and be with nature and build forts and things like that. So as much as possible, that's what I wanted to do. And I don't remember, we didn't have TV, so that was what it was. And I really enjoyed that. And I think kids miss that connection with nature now. It's so technological.
Yeah, I think about that often. I mean, even when I was growing up and in the Midwest, I could like that was my best childhood memories is my brother and my sister and I just like creating our own games, but just being in our backyard and outside all the time. I think
Right.
about that often of all these kids just being inside all the time. And then especially within these past 2 years, it's just that disconnection. And then maybe with our future with all this virtual reality talk, it's interesting the way that to see like the world will be.
Yeah, and I definitely think that connection led me to. I was always, as a kid, drawing environments and houses and things like that. And you know the houses and environments that I drew had a definite connection with nature. So I think that led me to Vastu at some point. There was something there.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love when you can remember in childhood how it connects as you adult because it's like you had that pure spirit as a child. And oftentimes I think we feel based on societal conditionings that we can't go after that childhood dream and that thing that really made this come alive. So that's so beautiful that you made that connection.
Sure.
So was Vastu one of your first introductions into the Vedas? And if so, how did you come into it?
So I was just walking down the street in San Francisco, and somebody said there was a talk going on about meditation. And remember, this is early 60s. So there was other things going on that opened my awareness. I won't get into that, but I went upstairs and there was just this big living room, and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was sitting there, and I was a
Wow.
young architect, very fortunate to meet him at a very early age. And he was talking about Atharveda and all the things that are in Atharveda that help us with improve the quality of our life. So there was meditation, there was yoga, there was breathing exercises, and he really didn't get into Vastu or Jyotish or the other things that are contained in Atharveda. Um, but when I met with him at a later point, he asked me to come to Rishikesh and design some buildings there at his ashram. And that's where I really connected or learned about Vastu. Even then, we didn't really say the name Vastu, but I was sitting at his feet and he was talking. He was like cognizing buildings, and you could feel like you were in the building, the length, the width, the proportions, the directions, having sun come in this way and entering the building this way. And so he was talking about the principles of Vastu, and later we learned that, or I learned that that's what he was talking about.
Wow. I have so many questions that all came at once, but I went to Rishikesh. I was there for a month and I got to see his ashram. So I'm so interested to hear more about that project.
So if you're walking through the ashram, you saw some domed huts that
Yes.
were made from rocks from the Ganges River. So that's what we were working on.
Whoa, those are so cool. I have a picture underneath one.
Yes.
That's incredible. So how did you, after that first experience and that meditation, did you just continuously go to Maharishi and start to learn from him?
Yeah. So back in those days, it was natural that after you learn the meditation, there was a desire to hang out more, and so the way was to become a teacher of transcendental meditation. So I did that, and then it was right after that I went to Rishikesh. So I was already a teacher of meditation, and I also studied with some Stapatis, which are Vedic architects, and learned other things there about the rectification, because Maharishi didn't talk about that. That's mainly what I do these days. Is I design a few buildings, a few houses every year, but mostly I rectify existing residences and hotels and restaurants and things like that.
Wow, so cool.
And just for those listening, I'm sure they picked up from some of this conversation, but can we talk about just at the really high level, what is Vastu and how do we use it and why is it used?
Sure. So Vastu is the science of building, and it predates feng shui by a couple thousand years. It's actually where feng shui came from. The Buddhist monks, it's at 7,000 to 10,000 years old, Atharvaveda is. And so it is, again, the science of building and building in harmony with nature. That's the key. And so everything you know about Ayurveda, the balancing the 5 elements in the body, if they're out of balance, then there's dis-ease in the body. Same thing happens with our environment. When the 5 elements in the body of your body, which is your residence, if they're out of balance, then you feel stress, and that stress impacts, depending on where energy is getting stuck in your resonance, it'll impact some aspect of you and your family's life. If it's in the Northwest, it'll affect your relationships. If it's in the Northeast, it'll affect your prosperity, your finances. If it's in the Southeast, it'll affect your health. And if it's in the Southwest, it'll affect your career. And if it's in the center for some reason, then it affects every aspect of your life. So it's very connected to Ayurveda that way, and then also Jyotish as well.
Wow, that's so cool. I've never heard the parallel between the residence and then the physical body being the residence, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah, the body of your body.
Yeah. And so when you walk into a place, I'd love to hear more about the process. So how can you tell if the energy is stuck? Is it because someone's saying, "Oh, I have issues with my relationship," and you look at the residents and you're like, "Oh, here's why"? Or is it more of a, I guess, metaphysical process? You're like, "Oh, I'm feeling that things are off here and this is some stuff we can shift to get the energy going."
It's a science. So my wife is much more intuitive than I am. She could feel it, but I can walk, we take a walk every day and I can walk by a residence and I just by the outer shape and kind of what I see, I can tell what stresses may be affecting that particular family. So there's some specific things that we look for that uh, create stress in an environment. Just I'll just run through them real quick. One is if you're not aligned to the cardinal directions. So if you look on Google Maps, the streets are going at an angle instead of north, south, east, west, perpendicular to your computer. And then the placement of fire elements like stoves and toilets and things like that. If they're not in the right place, energy can get stuck there and affect some aspect of your life. If parts of your residence, like if you're in an apartment and maybe you're you have a wall that's totally blocking on the east or the north, and that can affect the prosperity and the health. And then if you have lots of openings on the south and the west, you have more expenses, things like that. There's a few things we look for, and then we figure out, where the energy is getting stuck and what we need to do to get that energy to start moving. And it can all be done without any remodeling or anything like that. It's all done on an energetic level because everything is energy. And if you can shift that energy at a subtle level, like you do with a mantra and meditation, um, then everything starts flowing and you don't have to do it on a grosser, more, material level.
And you said you work with corporations and businesses. So what does that look like when you help large corporations use Vastu in their design?
So when I came back from India, I was very fortunate to be on the design team for the first Microsoft building, and I got to utilize everything I'd learned from Maharishi. And so I helped design the first Microsoft building according to Vastu, and some buildings for Boeing as well. And then, a lot of corporations like Amazon, Intel, Oracle, they just bring me in, to existing buildings, and everybody wants to be more productive, have better health for their employees, reduce the stress in the environment so they can be more creative. And that's what we do basically. And we look for where the energy is getting stuck, and just like in a residence, and how we can get that energy to start moving again.
What do you feel like is the biggest challenge working with corporations who, don't understand the elements and more of this energy-based type of living? How are you able to really like divulge that so they can digest it and fully believe it as their truth?
So it's usually because somebody is familiar. All my business comes from referrals from clients. So somebody works there, they know what I do and how it improved their life. And they talk to somebody higher up who can see, if it really can improve the productivity and the health of the employees and their creativity, why not? Let's try it. So yeah, it's not a big leap. It's usually an introduction from somebody who works there.
That's cool. And do you have any direct stories of maybe something you've changed and people have come back and instantly been like, "Wow, I've noticed this shift in my life," and it's kind of linear like that, or is it a little more subtle?
Yeah, usually people notice right away a little bit more harmony in the environment. Just there's so much stress in the environment now, just with COVID and being cooped up and confined, and stress, of our busy lives as well. And so they do notice more harmony in the family, and then the financial issues, the career issues, the health issues, they take a little bit more time. But yeah, I have thousands of clients all over the world that have experienced this.
That's fascinating. And it makes so much sense because it's again getting at the root. And when we feel good and harmony in our safe place, which is our home, it makes sense
Yeah.
that it can impact every single other aspect of our lives. And so for people listening, and I know you already said it doesn't require any remodels, but they're like, okay, what are some simple things I can change? And like for me, I live in a condo, so things are pretty predetermined. I rent it. But I feel like there's energy stuck in certain areas. What are simple things that you would suggest or recommend to people just to get things moving without necessarily changing huge things?
Yes, yes, there's lots of things you can do. So again, Vastu is about aligning your physical body and your environment with two forces of nature. One, the positive solar energy that comes from the east, and the positive magnetic energy that comes from the north. So the direction you sleep and the direction that you face when you're working has a huge impact on your ability to be productive and have less stress. And so many of us are working many hours at our computer, or doing something creative, maybe playing music or cooking. And so all of that is impacted by the direction you face. And so many of us have sleep issues, and it can be something to do with the direction you sleep. So just really fast, I've been involved in lots of studies where we'll take 100 kids, similar IQ, have them study the same materials, take the same test, and we'll divide them into 4 groups. 25 will face south, 25 will face west, 25 north, 25 east. And they're all hooked up to EEG machines to measure their brain waves. And what they find is the kids face north and east do about 20% better on the test. They're producing an alpha rhythm, which is a harmonic brainwave, and the kids that face south or west are producing a beta wave, chaotic peaks and valleys. So that, and the kids that face north do better on the left brain, the analytical math part of the test. Kids that face east, something about the solar energy from the east helps them be more creative on the creative part of the test. I've been involved in a bunch of studies where we'll take 50 patients in a hospital that are recovering from similar surgery, and we set it up that 25 of the beds with their headboard will be to the south and 25 will be to the north. And our body is like a magnet, so the positive polarity is in our head. So if we're sleeping with our head against a north wall, or headboard on a north wall, it's like bringing 2 positive ends of magnets together. What happens? They repel. So it disturbs the blood flow. So in these short studies, we found that the patients that were having their headboards to the south were recovering more quickly with less complications than the patients with their headboards to the north. So those are a couple simple things that you can do. The other thing that's pretty interesting is wherever things aren't organized in your house or your apartment, we call it clutter, which is common with feng shui, some energy gets stuck, and just everybody's had the experience. You take everything out of a drawer and throw away things that you don't need, and give away things that you don't need, and put everything back orderly. You get energy. It gives you energy when you straighten up a room or closet. So that's something else that can be easily done. Beyond that, anything you can do to support the 5 elements, just the way you support them through Ayurveda in the body, is helpful. Like Northeast is associated with prosperity. So, and it's associated with water, which is material, spiritual growth in your life. So a fountain, some moving water will be helpful. Southeast, like that's fire. So Himalayan salt lamp, something like that would be helpful. In the Southwest, that's an earth element. So having a plant there is helpful, supporting. And then in the Northwest, that's more air. So anything that has something to do with air, hanging chimes, something like that.
Wow.
So some simple tips.
It's amazing how many of these are intuitive. I was thinking as you were talking, I'm like, oh, my desk has always faced the north and my plants are in that space in my house. And so
Yeah.
it's funny how you naturally do those things. And maybe it's the space, but for me, it's like my desk could have faced any direction. I always choose north. So that's so fun to think about, that our bodies naturally know that if we listen, and maybe it doesn't make logical sense, but we follow that.
I find that with so many people that are successful and creative is they're intuitively doing a lot of these things already, for sure.
That's super helpful. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Angelica.
Oh no, I was just like looking in my room and then like, yes, yes, okay, we're good here. I'm facing east when I go to bed. It's great. It's so interesting though, because I love seeing it that way. And I think what I love the most about it is your environment is so influential on the health of yourself, of your mind, body, soul. And that's exactly what Ayurveda said. That's what all these sciences say, right? It's just about changing your environment. And this one's so cool because it's on such like a physical and tactical standpoint. I am so curious because we can see the obvious connection between Ayurveda and Vastu from the elements and how we're bringing it into balance. Have you ever worked with someone where they were working on an Ayurvedic imbalance, let's say a Pitta imbalance, and then you actually did see that mirror inside their house?
Absolutely, absolutely. So connected. Yes, yes. One really basic thing is, and it's not easy for a lot of people to change, but this is true for many, many of my clients. So if they have a Pitta imbalance and they're sleeping in the southeast, southeast is fire, that's Pitta. So that's going to aggravate your Pitta. If you've got a Vata imbalance and you're sleeping in the northwest area of the house, that's going to aggravate your Vata derangement. And so if the Pitta person or the Vata person, and I understand we're a combination. It's not just totally Vata. But if those people can sleep in the southwest, that's more grounding for them. They can sleep more deeply and balance out the doshas more. Whereas a Kapha person may be more balanced in the southeast. They get more energy. They get more done. They're moving more. So yeah, that's one really simple thing. But yeah, whenever I try to look at everyone in a holistic way so that, if somebody's telling me, I can see they have a missing corner in the southeast. Some energy is definitely getting stuck there. And they're telling me that they have diabetes or something like that. And if we eliminate that missing corner, we do this with what we call yantras or energy correction devices without, again, not any remodeling. We eliminate that missing corner so the energy starts to flow again, and they find that their insulin level goes down, and if they get a better diet, and their healing process improves quite a bit. In fact, I was on there's a doctor called Dr. Kulri Chowdhury. She is an Ayurvedic neurologist as well, and we were on Dr. Oz. We did a study with 30 of her patients who had reached a plateau and weren't getting better. So we introduced the Vastu and Jyotish and provided remedies and kind of watched what happened with their healing process. All of them took off, and we got to explain that on Dr. Oz. It was very fun.
Wow, that's so fascinating. I am curious, a question that came to mind. Does this relate to locations that we can live on in Earth? And is it, because I would imagine that, yes, if we're having this within our home, then the Earth also has these different types of placements as well, of maybe where there's certain elements that mesh. So are there certain places that may be more fruitful for people to live than others?
So Vastu is microcosm to macrocosm. So you're exactly right that there is the Vastu of your desk, the way you arrange your desk and what's on it. There's the Vastu of the room you're in. There's the Vastu of your residence. And if you're in an apartment building, it's the Vastu of the whole apartment building. There's the Vastu of the city, Vastu of the state, Vastu of the country. Mm-hmm. So yes, all of those things have some effect, and that it all has to do with the 5 elements and how those 5 elements are responding within you. That connects them. And in fact, it's very interesting when you look at someone's Jyotish chart, and I used to do this a lot, is I would look at their chart and then I would go to their residence, and there's an exact replication of their chart in their residence. Wow. For example, we gravitate towards different residences during certain dasha periods. And it has to do, each dasha period is teaching us to learn certain things about ourselves and grow and evolve and help other people, open our hearts. And so you'll gravitate towards a new apartment or a new house that supports whatever you need to learn. So in your chart, if you have a debilitated or afflicted moon, and then all the planets are represented in your Vastu, the floor plan of your house. Moon is associated with the Northwest and your relationships and the air element there. So then you would see in that house, there would be a missing corner in the Northwest or something going on there. It could even be just clutter that, is very difficult for you to organize. So yes, you see in the house and the floor plan of the residence, the apartment, the exact picture that you have in your chart.
Whoa,
Right?
that's so crazy. You just said that because I have a debilitated moon. My moon's in Scorpio, it's at 0 degrees. And in my apartment right now, we don't have a corner in the Northwest. It's the only, yeah, we don't have a corner there. There's all the other three corners there. There's not a corner there. And that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Something simple as not having, Northwest is moon and air. So if you're in an apartment, sometimes there's no windows in the Northwest, because there's another apartment, common shared wall there. So it could be something like that too. So it's interesting though. And then you relate it back to your Jyotish, like your very vata and having trouble sleeping, whatever, focusing, especially nowadays, a lot of people have trouble focusing. And so, yeah, very interesting how they all interconnect so well.
Yeah. So if you were doing that for a corporation, would you pull up the chart for like when they were established? Wow, that's so cool. And to see how it reflects in that as well.
Yeah. So Jyotish is so interesting. I mean, you were talking about different places in the world. We have this astrocartography, which there are certain planetary lines that run through the Earth according to your chart, and then you're looking at your chart, and maybe everything's going well, but the relationship areas could use some improvement, and depending on what planet rules your seventh house or whatever house that's reflecting relationships in your chart, you would want to try to go on a vacation near a Venus line if it happens to be Venus, etc. And then you can see how those different areas on the planet will support something that's maybe lacking in your life. So it's interesting that way. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Do you have any stories from your own life, how you've put these things into practice? Because obviously it's a
Sure.
daily practice for you, but it's fun to hear, personal ways that you've really taken it to maybe another level.
Yeah. So when I got back from India, we were going to build a Vastu house, but we were renting a house temporarily. And my wife in that house, I knew, that certain things could affect us, but I was really shocked how quickly it happened, where she started having all these weird undiagnosable illnesses in the house. There was a hot tub in the southeast, so water reducing fire, and many other things that cropped up. And so I started, I hadn't spent a lot of time doing the rectification. I'd just come back from India. I had learned some things, and so I started experimenting with my own family and friends as well, to see what worked and what didn't work. This is more than 40 years ago. So yeah, so those are the experiences that I had, and I saw some definite changes right away, and so started to help other people with those. And that's what I've been doing all this many years, is just helping people move the energy in their house so they feel uplifted when they come in. Everybody loves their house in some way, and a lot of people can't afford to build a house from scratch or move. So why not do as much as you can to support the five elements, get the energy moving in everyone's house. I think that's the future of Vastu and how we can help other people on the planet. So I train people to do what I do, and hopefully we can accomplish a lot in this lifetime.
Yeah. And we touched on how Vastu is connected to Ayurveda and also Jyotish. I'd love to hear if there's a deeper way it's connected to yoga as well. Like you mentioned the yantras, but anything specific about different places in your house, maybe you should practice or meditate or do breath work or anything like that?
Yes. So the Northeast is the confluence of the solar and the magnetic energy, and they call it Ishanya, God's corner. So you will see in India a lot of puja places, meditation area is in the Northeast area of the house or outside the Northeast area of the house. This is the most powerful place in your apartment or house to meditate facing east. Again, east is going to support the deeper meditation. Now, if you're meditating in the evening, as the sun goes directly overhead and sets in the west, north would be a better direction to meditate in the evening. But in the morning, facing that rising sun, being in the northeast is very powerful. So having your puja place on the east wall in the northeast or center or the east zone of the house is all very good for yoga and meditation. Exactly. And there are certain postures that relate to the dosha types, and you guys are aware of that. And just like that, in Jyotish, depending on the planet, there are certain, sun salutations for a afflicted sun or a weak sun would be helpful, etc. Like that. So they are connected in many, many ways. So in fact, the remedies, for Jyotish and Vastu and Ayurveda are all interconnected as well. So there are certain mantras I use Devata mantras for the planets, which is a little different from the mantras that you guys may be used to, that will support the elements in imbalances in the house and imbalances in the Ayurvedic chart, as well as the imbalances in the planetary chart, the Jyotish. But there are colors and there are pictures and paintings and things that can be hung in different areas of the house to bring energy up that may be blocked or disturbed for some reason. So yeah, there's many, many different ways. Aromas, all the different herbs and aromas are connected to the different planets. And so they can be used in your environment in a diffuser to, again, bring that maybe moon energy up in the northwest or Jupiter energy in the northeast or Venus energy in the southeast. So again, all the planets are aligned in a specific way within your residence.
Wow.
It's so incredible how you have knowledge of all three of these sciences, that you could bring them together, because I feel like that's what, if you look at each of these sciences like individually, like they're holistic sciences. It's the mind, body, soul. It's using all the planets. But when you take a step back and then on top of that, you use the sciences holistically together, that is where you find true harmony. So your expertise in having that is just so profound, and I'm sure sees such great results in finding harmony in the house. I'm curious, because I know a lot of our community, we're always talking about abundance, and that's something that's very top of mind always.
Right.
What would be your practical tools if someone wanted to cultivate more abundance and prosperity into their home?
Yeah, so the one I already gave already, which is placing a moving water, not just a bowl of water, but moving water in the Northeast, is very good to stimulate that water element, that prosperity element in the house. Having pictures or paintings of ocean or water in the Northeast on a north or east wall. If it's totally blocked, you can add a mirror there or something like that. But these paintings and pictures and colors like yellow in the Northeast, because that's the Jupiter energy, will expand, your prosperity. So all of those things are very helpful. And then in the center, that's the space element. The four elements, earth, water, fire, and air, come out of space, Akasha. And so the center also would be very important for abundance, and having some open space, empty space there, something. A lot of modern houses have toilets in the center. So it's flushing a lot of that prosperity, or toilets in the Northeast. So we'd want to definitely correct those, those toilets. Maybe you have a stove in the Northeast, so that's fire reducing water, so burning up money basically instead of flushing it. So those are the things that we look at, when there's a financial issue. And sometimes it's connected to the health or the career issues in the Southwest as well. So kind of have to look at everything to improve the prosperity.
I love that. That's perfect. Really practical tools. And I just have yellow flowers that got yesterday.
Nice.
They're my northeast part of the house.
Perfect.
And I know you touched on this earlier a little bit about the future of Vastu, but it was interesting. I was reading about some of the power places in the world that I think were designed by Vastu. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like the pyramids, different things like that. So as far as like the maximum potential, what would happen if we all started designing and living in this way through the cities and the countries? Like we could create such energy centers, right? Or what do you see as like the maximum potential of using this and everything?
There are certain places in the world where there are Vastu communities, like Fairfield, Iowa, and there are other places in South America and things like that. But even just little by little in your neighborhood or within your community, just improving the energy flow in the house brings this synchronicity where people are working in harmony within the community towards a common goal of helping each other, opening your hearts and connecting on that very subtle, powerful spiritual level. So I feel like whatever we can do to improve the energy flow in the environment, wherever you are, start there, start with yourself, start with your residence, and this will affect everything around you. You're in an apartment. So if you rectify the Vastu in your apartment, it's going to affect everyone else there in some way. So
wow, that's special. Yeah, and I'll take it right to the mayor of Chicago. Let her know we need a city redesign. Like, Lori, I have some ideas. Amazing. Well, Michael, this has been, you've given us so many good tips and awesome information. And I know we were just like deer in the headlights because there's just so much goodness, and it's incredible to see it connected to some of our favorite things. And to really know at a deep level, everything is connected to nature. And we model our systems and our lives based on nature, we can find the natural harmony that is already present within nature. And when I zoom out and look at it from that perspective, it seems so much more doable. I think sometimes with the tidbits we get overwhelmed, but when it's like, okay, I just want to create nature inside and create that harmony inside. And you've done such a good job of helping us understand how that actually comes to life in the physical space. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for being here. And you have so much wisdom, like Angelica already said. So we just appreciate you sharing and being an open book. And this has been such a fun conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, and just for anybody who's interested, I teach Vastu. It's called the American Institute of Vastu, and you can get to it through our website, vastucreations.com. And so there's 3 levels, and you can get certified to do exactly what I do, help other people. And we have so many Ayurvedic practitioners, nutritional counselors and life coaches taking the courses and helping other people in their own way. And especially for the Ayurveda people, they're looking at improving, balancing those 5 elements. And when they take the environment into asking certain questions of their clients, you can help them on, more than just the herbal level and the lifestyle level. And then we also have the transformational Vedic astrology, where I have a pretty unique approach to Vedic astrology. I also have a course coming up in transformational Vedic medical astrology, which really connects everything. And I'm very excited about that. That'll be coming out in the next month or so. And then we also have Robin, again, who I can't do anything without, is having an altar certification course. She uses the principles of Vedic astrology and Vastu to create these manifesting altars that are very, very powerful. So that's also coming up. But you can get to all of that through vastucreations.com.
Perfect. And we will have that link in the show notes. And I'm definitely going to check that out because we, once you become a student of Vedic wisdom, you're a student for life. And this all sounds incredible. So thank you so much again. Thank you everyone for tuning into this episode, and we will see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much.